Okay, hello everyone. I think we are all set to get started here today. So thank you so much for joining our webinar series called Green Thinking Powered by Busch Systems. The title of today's session is Journey to Zero Waste. My name is Savannah and I am the Waste Diversion Specialist and True Zero Waste Advisor here at Busch Systems. So if you're unfamiliar with our company, we are a designer and manufacturer of customized recycling and waste containers, just like the ones that you see up on the screen. So my role with Busch is to support our customers with their recycling efforts and really to help them maximize the amount of recyclables that are generated within their spaces and really helping to improve sustainability practices overall. And one of the ways that we do this is communicating through this educational webinar series where we can really share our experiences related to certain recycling topics. So some housekeeping items to get started today. Everybody's microphones are muted. This helps to keep the audio really clean and clear. There is a question option on the right-hand side toolbar where you can go ahead and type any questions that you have in there. And we will be addressing all the questions at the end of today's webinar. Also, today's session is being recorded, so you will be sent an email after today's presentation with a link to that recording. And we are very excited to have two guest speakers for today's session, Bridget from the University of Ottawa and Adam from a program here in Toronto called Foodshare. And both speakers are going to speak to their experiences and recycling and compost programs and how this is related to zero waste in a little bit. So I'm going to start today's presentation by doing an overview of zero waste and what that means. We're going to chat a little bit about what the issue is with waste, what are some of the benefits of zero waste, and what are some of the processes that are required to achieve zero waste status. And we're also going to hit on some successful case studies as well. So we all know that the goal of zero waste is to reduce and ultimately to eliminate any waste that ends up in landfill. So some statistics that are related to waste generation and our consumption are really pretty staggering and concerning. So in the last 50 years, we've consumed more resources than all of previous history. And 1/3 of food that we actually produce is wasted. Another statistic, in 2014, the largest 5,500 businesses in the US sent 342 million metric tons of waste to landfill and incinerators. And approximately 10 to 20 million tons of plastic ends up in our oceans every year. So both Canada and the US have had pretty stagnant national diversion rates. This is around 30%, and it's been this way for about 15 years now. So this really calls for new actions and strategies to help push zero waste forward. And you know what's on the screen, these are the trends that we're really seeing when we start talking about garbage. And we're at a time right now where consumerism is at an all-time high and huge amounts of materials are being thrown into landfill, and there's really no signs of this type of lifestyle slowing down. So there is still hope, and we are going to get into what this looks like in a little bit. So what is zero waste? There are a lot of various definitions of zero waste that are floating around out there and different opinions on what diversion percentages classify as zero waste. So most zero waste certifications that we have seen require a minimum diversion rate of at least 90% in order to be considered a zero waste facility. And there are really rigorous processes and requirements that are needed to achieve this status. So the latest definition from the Zero Waste International Alliance is from December of 2018, and it defines zero waste as the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharge to land, water, air that threaten the environment or human health. So zero waste facilities and corporations, they're sustainable, they're environmentally responsible, and help to turn waste into profit. So although the topic recently has become more popular, zero waste is definitely not a buzzword. It's a long-term solution used to help combat some of our struggles with waste and to help transition from our current linear economy to a more circular economy. So it really is a community of people that are working toward a better future for our planet and for future generations. And the end goal of zero waste is to really strive to divert 100% of materials. So this means that no material is sent to landfill, incineration, waste to energy, or the environment. So this can be pretty overwhelming to think about at first when you envision your facility or your school generating no waste with everything being recycled or reused and nothing being landfilled. But this is why it is so critical to share and to learn from others about what it is that's been successful for other businesses or other campuses. So with well-publicized markets really challenging the recycling industry, one strategy is to focus efforts towards reducing the amount of waste generated in the first place. And this is done through the redesign of products, which is at the very top of this graph, which came from Zero Waste Canada. So again, this is the concept of a circular economy where the products are being manufactured so that they're designed with end of life in mind. So they can actually be taken apart and repurposed into something new. And this is a pretty complex topic, one that we could spend hours discussing here today. So we're going to kind of save that and not dive too deep into that topic today. So this graph is a really good representation of how materials should be ideally handled and disposed of. And it's very similar to the popular EPA waste management hierarchy as well. So second from the top is waste reduction. So this is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle when we're trying to strive toward a zero waste society. And this is why it's right near the top of this hierarchy as one of the most preferred options. So when we look at using a zero waste approach, really at the core, we're trying to prevent waste from occurring. So we're pre-planning for what materials must be disposed of. We're assessing the type and the amount of these materials, and we're finding practical ways that we can reduce and reuse the material and compost and recycle wherever we can. So what are the benefits of being a zero waste facility? Well, the following points up on the screen are really important when trying to get buy-in from others for your zero waste program or when you're pitching ROI to management to get a zero waste program kicked off. So the first one is cost savings. So the projected environmental costs through greenhouse gas emissions are anywhere from $90 to $130 per ton. By landfilling or incinerating waste from businesses. So this is contributing to climate change and cleanup of contaminated soil and water and other health effects of pollution. So we greatly reduce our contributions to this number when we're practicing zero waste initiatives. The next is saving resources. So when we look at paper alone as a resource, recycling 1 ton of paper can actually save 17 trees or 7,000 gallons of water. And also we can look at saving energy as well. So reusing materials eliminates the need to make new products, saving energy. So going back to the paper example, recycling 1 ton of paper can save 2 barrels of oil or 4,100 kilowatts of energy. And this is enough energy to power the average American home for 6 months. Adds value to your organization. So zero waste efforts contribute to increases in revenue generation from the sale of your recyclable commodities. And zero waste efforts also cut operational costs and reduce purchasing. So General Motors, as an example, their annual revenue from recycling, reuse, and byproduct was $1 billion from 1 year alone. And creating jobs as well. This is one of my favorites to talk about. So reuse, recycling, and waste reduction offer direct development opportunities for different communities. And recycling alone creates 10 or more jobs for every 1 job from sending material to landfill. And also holding a zero waste status demonstrates your environmental commitment that goes beyond greenwashing, and it holds your business or your campus accountable. So who is involved in zero waste programs? Really everybody. Zero waste initiatives include most personnel from your organization. So it's management, it's groundskeepers, it's vendors, suppliers, purchasing agents, and so many other people. Zero waste planning, it involves all departments that generate waste. It requires responsibility and participation from all of these different departments as well. It's really important to have a designated person or a team who is responsible for these waste goals and helping to keep everybody on track and moving forward. So diversion tracking, we wanted to talk about this. It's one of the most critical steps in quantifying your materials. And this is what you really want to include in your zero waste policy. So it highlights materials that are traveling through your facility, and it uncovers different opportunities to improve. So you'd want at least 12 months of weight data and material values for all your different waste streams. And these quantities are really important when you're looking at establishing baselines, which you're able to then measure your progress and communicate how your efforts are really making a difference. So when you're looking at additional opportunities to divert material, it's important to look at the costs that are associated with these services. So cardboard as an example. Here's some of the questions that can be projected to really any commodity that you want to divert. So for cardboard, who is it that's going to be responsible for baling this material? What are the associated labor costs? Does it require purchase or rental of equipment? Does the equipment require maintenance? Are there hauling fees associated with the bales? What's the value of this material? Can this material be stored on site or sold at the best price? So from these questions, you can see that there is substantial time and effort that needs to go in to really analyze the potential to divert additional recyclables. So striving for a diversion rate of 60 or more really involves evaluating your operations at your facility to come up with your zero waste action plan. So it involves stepping back to reevaluate how it is that your organization operates and how it consumes and manages different materials. So after diversion data is collected, you can prepare to move forward with your zero waste action plan. So this plan addresses key findings from your waste audit data that you collected. And you also want to outline the implementation of the different strategies in zero waste policies. So this would include revised purchasing guidelines for supplies that are environmentally sourced and giving preference to equipment that will last longer or not require frequent replacement. So an example of this would be giving preference to printers that are durable and will last much longer. Procurement policies that discourage wasteful consumption, like transitioning to electronic documents in order to reduce paper. Recognize waste collection infrastructure and service in ways that directly or indirectly encourage recycling and reuse. Having mandatory recycling disposal practices. Outreach and communication, and getting your leadership to visibly endorse and model your waste reduction practices that you're asking other people to adapt as well. So it's important to remember that people on the front lines really have the knowledge about limitations of your recycling program. So communicating with your employees and your servicing staff, your students, the ones that are actually handling the materials. So survey, interview these people to gain insights. A lot of the times, opportunities for improvement come from these people. And if your employees hold a commitment to continuous improvement, you want them involved and you want them engaged. So now we're going to transition to some success stories. So we're going to hit on 3 different companies that are cases from the true zero waste certification process. So each of these companies are leaders in the topic of zero waste and have all achieved various levels of certification based on some pretty impressive diversion rates. So one thing that I did want to mention here quickly was our consulting team here at Busch Systems is true zero waste certified. So through the certification, we're able to consult with our customers on zero waste and help them to achieve this third-party certification. So if this is something you're interested in, please reach out to me after the webinar. My email address will be there and we're happy to help. Some of the services that we offer through our consulting services are waste auditing, integrated solid waste management planning, container deployment, and on-site specialist support as well. So we wanted to start with Tesla. So their facility is 5.5 million square feet. It's a manufacturing facility and they have achieved an overall diversion rate of 97%. Very impressive. So most of their material is sold to a third-party recycling company, and it includes material like cardboard, plastics, foams, pallets, and $30 million was saved in 2016 alone from reduced hauling fees and revenue from these recyclables. So Kellogg's, their manufacturing plant is 292,000 square feet. And they have an overall diversion rate of 95.5. So this was a huge improvement from their 2013 diversion rate, which was 50%. So they uncovered 12 new streams that they were able to divert, and that included wood scraps, film waste, food scraps, paper towels, PET, plastics, and many others. So this led to an increase in diversion rate by 31% from the first 6 months alone. And their zero waste plan has helped to reduce the cost of their waste management program by almost 80%. And they had begun to reduce the amount of waste from the front end, including reducing the size of finished good packaging by 21%. And HP headquarters in California, their 450,000 square feet office averaged diversion rate of 95.7. So by achieving this diversion rate, it resulted in reduced hauling costs by more than 20% over 2 years. And some of these sustainable practices that they implemented were reducing cafeteria waste, eliminating single-use plastics, and they started donating leftover food from the cafeteria as well. So at this point, I'm going to pass the presentation off to Bridget. Bridget has been working as the Zero Waste and Recycling Coordinator for Facility Services at the University of Ottawa since 2008. Her main goal is to reduce consumption by as much as possible and attain a 95+ diversion rate by introducing new recycling and reuse programs on campus. So Bridget, I am just passing off the controls to you, and you should be all set to go.
Okay, thanks. Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to be talking to you about zero waste at U Ottawa by talking about our recycling and reuse programs and mentioning our ongoing challenges as we go through the presentation. So this is our diversion rate over the years. Wait, hold on a second. Sorry about that. This is through time. This is actual weights. These are all in kilograms. So you can see that even I started here in 2008. You can see that even before me, U Ottawa was doing a really good job at starting to recycle and offer that option. One of the big changes that had occurred before I started here was that they offered a desk side recycling container for paper products. And they also started reducing the amount of times that they would go and pick up the garbage in people's offices to 1 time a month instead of once a week or even daily in some offices. Some of the challenges that we've had over the years, I know this is early to start to talk about this, but I thought I would mention them anyways. For anyone who's working on a campus, our target audience changes every year. We have 50,000 students here and get a new 10,000 every year. That's 10,000 people that we need to educate. One of the big challenges that we also had was that changing our recycling service providers whenever that occurs. Sometimes it's every 5 years, sometimes it's less. Sometimes that company will no longer accept all of the products that were being accepted before. One of the challenges that I'm thinking of in particular was that we, for a little while in the early 2000s, we had a company that would pick up all of our plastics. It didn't matter what the material, what number it was, as long as it was plastic, it could all go into the same bag, and it was picked up by this company. That company went out of business, and then we kind of had to scramble and try to switch off all of our education, all of the signage on our recycling stations, and try to find a company that could accept the most plastics as possible. Another big challenges we have that some of you will also know about are franchises on campuses. So we have, as a food service provider on our campus, Chartwells, and they are 110% willing to switch all of their products to be compostable, for example, or even to eliminate some disposables. However, not all franchises are willing to work with us, so that's another one of our challenges. Another one would be changing budgets or employee allowance that we might have. We used to have a person, so you can see in yellow, I started tracking reuse that we were doing on campus. For a while, we had someone that was, their main objective and job was to take care of reusing furniture on campus, and they were doing other reuse programs as well. We lost the funding for that person, and that's why you see in 2017 we're barely doing any at all. And another challenge that we had for a little while, but that we have found a solution, is that we, before the city of Ottawa offered compost program services, we purchased our own industrial in-house composter, and we were doing all of our own compost. The machine could handle about 250 tons a year, but within just maybe 2 years, we were collecting too much organics and overthrew our compost. Luckily, by then the city of Ottawa had launched their own program, and now we're sending our organics and don't have a weight limit or have to throw anything out. Oh yes, and I thought it would be good to mention that the numbers that I'm tracking here, this is real, these are real weights. Even our reuse, we actually weigh things, and the rest of the weights are provided by the companies. And the numbers that I am including of sources of waste on campus, the entire U Ottawa 3 campuses, including all of our campuses' housing services, are included in these numbers. Our current waste diversion rate is at 64%. I thought it was very noteworthy to mention the contamination rate that I've started tracking. 2 years ago, we had a new cleaning service provider win the university's contract for cleaning. This new company is not doing as great of a job of sorting the recyclables, even though we've tried even color coding the bags so that all of the blue bags are for recycling, for example, all of the green bags are for compost, and clear bags are for waste. They're not putting those bags in the right place, and it's happening at such a high frequency that I've asked our recycling service provider to start tracking that contamination so that I'm actually removing that from our diversion rate. So we would be at 70%, over 70% if we weren't contaminating all of that recycling. So this is what recycling stations look like in all of our public locations on campus. I thought it would be good to mention like what we've done over the years. We started off with these in the 90s, where the holes were on the top. We had not such clear signage. The photos, you can't see them very well there, don't really identify properly like an item that you would actually have. In our second version, we didn't, we made, at least the holes were in the front, but our signage wasn't all that great. When I came in 2008, one of my first projects was to modify this and to add recycling stations in all public locations on campus. So we probably have about almost 300 of these recycling stations all over campus. It's part of the standard for building all new buildings. The only exception is that they might switch up the colors so that it matches the format of that new building. So we have one that the front is completely yellow and the signage, the back panel is black. So they're different colors, but they all have the same signage. They all have the liquids recipient, and they all have holes that can be modified. So this one here, I can actually remove this panel, or I can add it here if I like. It's just a couple screws. If we think that like a new packaging comes out that's too big to fit into those holes, and we just remove them. Or if we switch this for compost in some areas, then I just remove this. the signage are just plastic sign holders, and it's a piece of paper that I can slide in and out, because we noticed that even over 10 years, we've switched our signage here at least 4 times, either switching the objects on it or adding, like you see here below, signage very specific to a certain building. Like when we added a Thai Express in one of our buildings, we started adding the logos for those objects on our recycling stations. One really common question that I always get about our stations is about the liquids category. So this is not connected to anything at all, no drain. All it is just like a coffee shop would have. It's just a grill, and there's a tube that comes down here into a bucket that needs to be emptied as frequently as possible. Cleaning staff are supposed to put like a soapy solution down here daily, and that's something that we have to watch out for with especially the new cleaning service provider. It was not a problem before, but now in certain areas it's starting to be a challenge. Our zero waste dining hall. We introduced this in 2015. All of the 8-month lease apartment residences that are on the main campus, so the ones that they have to walk like 10 minutes to get on campus, are not obligated to be on this meal plan. But the ones that are on the main campus are obligated to be on a 5-day-a-week meal plan, where it's an all-you-can-eat buffet style, where there is no waste to landfill at all. There isn't even the option of throwing out waste. We do have a separate station for staff, for example, to be able to throw their gloves out or their little cleaning wipes or anything like that, or if they're refilling certain stations inside of the dining hall, then they have a separate facility that you actually have to pull up a lever to put the waste in, and they have the appropriate signage. And actually, you can see later on when we look at our the amount of items that we're collecting during campus move out, you can see the impact very clearly that this dining hall had on the amount of things that students were leaving behind when they were moving out of residences. It's not letting me switch.
Okay, let me see here. Try again, Bridget.
Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome.
So now our zero waste dining hall, yes, that's great that we're not sending any items to landfill, but yes, there is a food waste problem. So to address this, at the beginning of every semester, we have a crew of volunteers that are not hard to find because we offer them free food to help encourage people to not waste food. So whenever people are bringing back their plates and you see someone with like a full plate of food or food that's untouched, people are questioning them, you know, is it because the food wasn't labeled properly, perhaps, that the item was thrown out? Maybe it's too spicy and it should have been labeled in that way to make it so that other people won't be wasting that food. And also, you know, educating people about food waste and, you know, going back to take more than one portion later on. We are also a bottled water free campus since 2009, which also had a really, I don't have a stat for this, but it definitely changed the amount of waste that employees were collecting in our campus recycling stations. So the FreeStore, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a store where everything is free. I thought it'd be good to mention, you know, version 1, where we came from and where we are now. So back in 2008 and a little bit before, what we would do is that once a month, we would set up tables in our university center. We would put out all the stuff that we had collected in the meantime, and people could bring us the stuff that they wanted and take whatever they wanted for free. We functioned like that for maybe 2 or 3 years. And eventually it became so big that the person who ran this building, the university center, had an extra space that people were fighting over, and said that he would give it to us if we ran our FreeStore there permanently on a regular basis. And so we were given a small space and started running it 3 days a week from 10 to 3, and people could come shop for things and bring us their donations. And over the years now, currently last year, we were able to move into a much better space that is on the main campus, like the center of it. So everyone walking by can actually walks by it, can see it. We're more of a storefront, kind of like a secondhand store, where we have windows that face one of the main roads on campus, which has helped the amount of people showing up each time. Every day we probably have about over 150 people coming through the FreeStore taking things. So some of the challenges that we've had with our FreeStore. So we have a donation bin, and that's great. But we got to a point where when we moved our donation bin to a much more convenient spot, which was near a parking lot, people were bringing us way too many donations. It became very quickly overwhelming. Like people leaving messes behind, like some of the other charities might see when there's no more room in the bin, people just leave everything on the floor, and then you have people that are rummaging through it, making a big mess. That quickly became a huge labor burden. And so what we've done is that we moved our donation bin inside, so it's a little less accessible. So maybe some community members aren't using it, and that's okay. We really just want you Ottawa community members using it anyways. Some of the other challenges that we've had over the years were with resellers, because we used to allow anyone of the Ottawa community to come through the FreeStore and take whatever they would like for free. However, we quickly encountered a couple of resellers that would come with their minivan, fill up their van with everything that they possibly could, and take off and come very frequently. They were often people who were much more aggressive than other people, you know, coming in and actually taking everything of an entire category and not letting other people take any at all. So what we had to do is that we had to start IDing people and putting up signage everywhere and not allowing people who were not of the Ottawa community to use the FreeStore. So now we actually have someone greeting at the door that IDs everyone. As long as you have Ottawa ID of some kind or can prove that you're part of the Ottawa community, then you can come into the store, but anyone else is told that they have to leave. And we haven't had any problems of that sort since. We've also encountered a lot of homeless people who when our donation bin was outside, would climb inside and take things. I'm sure we've all seen the news articles of people passing away or getting stuck in those bins. So that was something that really frightened us. So we've made we haven't changed our bins so that you can still climb inside of it, because what we told ourselves is that if someone can go in, at least someone can get out, and we don't want someone to get hurt. However, like I mentioned before, we've moved it inside where security cameras can see it at all times, and that building in particular where it is closed at 11 p.m. and reopens at 6 a.m. So we haven't had any problems since, fingers crossed for that, because that was causing us a lot of problems. I still can't switch. Oh, there. Okay, I've got it, sorry.
Got it, perfect.
Yeah. Here are our FreeStore numbers. So those are in kilograms. That's what we actually do, weigh every item that comes in. We actually weigh it with a small scale. So these are real numbers, and that's what we've been doing over the years. The dump and run, that's the name that we've given our campus move out program. So when students are leaving their university dorm rooms, they tend to leave behind a whole lot of stuff. We have a pretty significant population of international students that's understandable that you're not going to bring back your winter jacket to a warm country, or you're not going to bring back all of your pots and pans in a plane with you to go home. So we first got started a very long time ago. What we would do is that we would go dumpster diving and collect everything that we saw in all of the dumpsters set out around campus, and those items would end up at our monthly FreeStore that we would run, or when it got large enough, we would actually donate to local charities depending on what they needed. So we've gone from something like that to something like this today, where we have a giant team of volunteers that can be between 30 and 50 people during the move out weekend that come and help us out. We are now going through people's rooms before cleaning staff go and throw everything out. We collect everything that's still good if we have time to. It's very labor intensive, but we have a lot of help, and we're able to go through the majority of campus residences before cleaning staff get through. We also have tables set out for people to be able to donate their items, and we remove that frequently during the move out period. So for other people who are involved in this, I've talked about volunteers. Even this year, it's noteworthy to say that we had a group of staff who wanted to give us 4 hours of their time, a group of 30 employees here at the university said, we really like what you're doing with the dump and run. We would like to help you for 4 hours. So for those 4 hours, those employees actually took care of one of our campus dorms entirely and were able to help us collect that stuff. They were able to see the amount of stuff that's left behind and get an idea of people's overconsumption habits. Who else is involved with this? I usually have 2 paid student volunteers that work 35 hours a week for me during the summer, and they start during campus move out. Our campus housing services help us out by providing tables and signage for people to donate their things. They send out emails to all the students educating them where the tables are located and to please bring all of your donations down to the tables instead of us having to fish it out of their rooms. And cleaning staff all get educated before the clean out occurs so that if they come into a room that we haven't been through yet and they see that there's a bunch of stuff left behind that could still be good, they give us a call and we come and we grab everything that we can. So it's a very good example of a program where so many different people on campus are working together. And when I first got started, I would say that during the move out period, we probably had about 20-yard containers, that's this container in this photo, all over campus going out. And now I can say that this year we probably only had about 5, maybe 4 going out, and all the rest of that stuff was being recycled or collected for dump and run. These are numbers, these are in metric tons of how much stuff we've been collecting over the years. We have added 1 or 2 campus residences over the years, and then one has closed down. So during, I would say, between 2015 and today, we've stayed pretty steady with 1 building shutting down and 1 being added. And like I formerly mentioned about the zero waste dining hall, the zero waste dining hall went up in September of 2015. So the collection for the dump and run of that school year would have been in 2016. So you can see right there the huge impact that that had on the amount of stuff that people were purchasing and leaving behind. If you think about if you're eating in a dining hall, then you're not going to purchase pots and pan sets, plate sets, cutlery, all of those things that are very heavy, that are breakable, and that are almost always getting left behind during move out. So some of the challenges that we have with the dump and run, there's obviously the labor issue. We have 11 buildings housing people on campus. 3 of them don't move out in May 1st, but all the rest of them do. So that is, and we don't have very much time to go through all of those buildings and try to collect as much as we can. So we're not quite at the 100%. We can still collect more, and we can still educate people to not buy as much stuff. And I'm sure anyone else that's working on a campus has noticed that Amazon has a huge impact on that, the amount of stuff that people are buying. It's becoming really easy, and then they're leaving all of their boxes behind to be thrown out during move out as well. So this year, it costed us about 270 hours of volunteer time to collect all of those items, to sort all of the items that we collected this year, to find charities to donate 1.3 tons to, and then some of those charities we drive to, and some of them will actually come and pick up all the stuff that they want. And we also call all the charities ahead of time. We don't send them stuff they don't want. We ask them specifically, do you want, for example, plus size men's clothing, or if they need only pots and pans, we only send them what they actually need. We're not just, sending unsorted stuff for them to deal with afterwards. Food donations. So the last big program that I wanted to talk about was our food donation program. These are weights in kilograms. In the first 2 big columns that you see here, we used to have a program where staff would bring, cafeteria staff would bring their leftovers from the day before to our food bank. And anything that our campus food bank didn't want, we had a transport crew from our campus movers that would come pick up that stuff and bring it to a homeless shelter near campus. And then in the school year 2016-2017, there were a couple of new members on the food services team that had a scare. They learned about the program. They were afraid that they would get sued over donating items that might have passed the expiry date the day before or the day of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that really halted the program for that year. We had to sit down with them. We had a lot of meetings. We talked about the Good Samaritan Act. It's present in Ontario, whereas if you're giving an item in good faith, you can't be sued if someone were to get sick or prove that they got sick from your donated items. And so that was enough to reassure our food services team. And we got the program up and running even more than we had previously done. So now staff are having different community organizations come directly on campus to the central dining hall to collect all of the things that are centralized from all of the other food service locations on campus. We still have challenges. We can still do much better because not all locations are working with us, or they don't do it every time. You know, that's if they run out of time, or if there's not enough labor that day, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of excuses that can be given. People will just throw out the food at that specific location instead of sending it to the main dining hall to be reused or to be given away to someone. So we still have some work to do. We also, as of this year, they've stopped weighing it. So now we're having to do estimations. One of our students is working on a way to estimate the food donations based on, like, all of these food products are pre-weighed, have grams. So we're going to have to come up with a new way of tracking those materials because they no longer have the time or labor to be able to weigh those goods for us. And the other thing that we're not currently doing is that we're only taking cold foods from refrigerators and like baked goods. We're not doing any hot foods yet. That will be the next step. I'd say maybe within the next 2 years we could get there. We're looking at different options right now as to how we would do that, how we would contain those things, and where to store them before the groups come and pick up their stuff. So that sums up my presentation, but I did want to mention like next steps, because I find that's something that's often missing out of presentations, is like, where are we going? So this is all great, all of the stuff that I've just mentioned, but where are we going next? So I thought I would mention that we're going to be focusing a lot more on our reuse programs. We just got our furniture reuse program back up and running this year, and we're going to be focusing a lot on that to reuse furniture instead of buying new items. We're also going to be going for the hand towel free concept. So we do have a lot of hand dryers on campus, but I would like a lot more, and I would like to not have as many hand towels, especially in public washrooms, to save labor and to save a lot of waste. Another thing is that 25% of all of our campus waste comes out of our housing service buildings. And even though that's not managed by facilities service, I think a lot needs to be done to work with this group to run better awareness campaigns. They also don't necessarily have the same way of collecting recyclables in those buildings versus the entire rest of the campus. So that can often confuse people. People don't necessarily recycle well or don't even know what it is that they should be doing. So that'll be a big focus for the next couple of years. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Bridget. That was great. Lots of really good examples there that our audience can use to help them with their zero waste programs as well. So thank you. We're now going to transition to our next speaker, Adam Dirks, from a program called Foodshare. So Adam has been working as an organic farmer for the past 10 years and is focused on designing equity-based waste management programming. So today, Adam is going to share with us a fantastic mid-scale compost program that can be replicated for campuses or at the municipal level. So Adam, you should have control and should be all set there.
Yes. Welcome. Thanks everyone for this chance to talk. My name is Adam, and I'm Foodshare's school-grown farm coordinator. A little bit about Foodshare is we're a nonprofit organization that works with communities and schools to deliver healthy food and food education. We believe everyone deserves access to affordable, high-quality, fresh food, and we've been doing this since 1985. We're one of the oldest food justice organizations in Toronto. And not only do we focus on like food justice and food accessibility, but we're also trying to deal with a lot of the the root causes of food insecurity, and that's dealing with systemic issues and injustices that cross the whole range of the food system. Our school grown program, which is the program I work with, we partner directly with the TDSB. We're a fully youth-run farming organization. We have 3 farms in Toronto, and one of the great programs that we run is the Community Compost Exchange, which I'm going to talk to you guys more about today. Oh, sorry. So what is the CC? So what we do is we're an exchange system. So we collect food waste from our community members. And when they bring their food waste to our farm, they're given market dollars in exchange for the waste that they can then use to buy all the organic produce that we sell at our farmers markets. As the farm, we then have a mid-scale system that we've designed, and we turn all of that kitchen waste and organic waste into a nutrient-dense compost, which is then used back on the farm to grow more produce, which is then sold at future markets. It's also distributed to community gardens in the area. It's mixed with soil to be used on rooftop or in raised garden beds. And this model really works on closing the loop for food waste. And we work specifically with community members that don't have access to Toronto's green bin system. So a lot of apartment building, multi-residential buildings, daycares, a lot of community centers. A lot of them don't have access to getting their waste collected, and all that ends up in the landfill. So what we're trying to do is change that system, show how important food waste is, and we're doing that kind of through this exchange system. As we talked a bit earlier, there's a lot of categories of food waste, and some of the first steps are diversion, like making sure food waste isn't being wasted in the fridge, like making sure folks aren't buying so much. But even if you're able to hit all those top steps, you're still having about a 40% waste that needs to find a place to go. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to connect communities more with the waste that they're producing. So how did this get started? So our school grown program, we run a 2.5 acre farm, and everything we do is organic. We grow a lot of food. Last year, we grew about 40,000 pounds of organic produce. And we used to, about 5 years ago, we partnered with a local food bank. They didn't have access to anywhere to put the organic waste. They were really close to the farm, and we said, hey, we'll take all that waste that you have. So we were taking a lot of, particularly because a lot of the orders they were getting were coming from the food terminal, and they were on the edge of going bad, and they didn't know how quickly they could get them out. So sometimes we would process 70 bins of dragon fruit, or 4 shipping pallets of Oreo cookie crumb waste. Some crazy combinations of things went into our compost. And they eventually found a larger warehouse and left the area, and we had a large kind of mid-scale system that we had built. And in that same time, about 5 families were coming, and they asked, like, hey, we don't have anywhere to bring our food waste. We'd really love if we can bring it to the farm. We saw that you were composting. And so those 5 families, they started dropping off their food waste, and they would just go around the farm and pick a couple things to take home. Here's a photo of a few of the first people that were exchanging their waste. And now through our 2 farms that are running this program, we have over 170 families that are signed up, and right now, and last year alone, we collected about 45,000 pounds of food waste, and we also saved about 100,000 pounds of carbon material. So we collect wood shavings or wood chips that is then used to make our compost. So here are a couple photos from some of the stands that we're running. You know, the program that the CCE is not only just kind of bridging this gap that exists between residential composting and kind of large industrial composting. But at the same time, the markets, they become big community hubs. One thing we've realized with the CC, which has been great, is that community members they get really excited, and folks, because they come to the market every week because they want to drop their waste off every week. And as a market, as a farm, that allowed us to then not have to go to any downtown markets or not go to any markets that weren't in our community. We were able to just focus on running a once or bi-weekly market that would happen at our community, and everybody would come to that one day. And right now at both locations, there's about 180 folks that come to our market every day, once a week, to exchange their food for the waste that we are producing. And the program wants to connect with a lot more than just composting. So a really important thing that we're doing is building accessible farm markets. Right now, throughout the city, there's not much outside of the food bank system here. There isn't really much accessible food programming that can happen that is free or that you're able to go to without having to pay. And we found it really important is how do we switch that model? A lot of participants didn't like the produce that was at the food banks. They didn't feel comfortable going to the food banks. Instead, they're able to bring their food to our markets, exchange it, and then they feel they are a part of that community. The markets also allow a lot of food literacy and food education that can happen. We cook meals at the markets. We share recipes for all the produce. A lot of those recipes go a really long way in helping produce less, or in having recipes and showing people how to use kale stems, that the top of a beet is the same as a chard green, that the top of a carrot can be used just like parsley and ceviche. So kind of sharing those recipes have actually helped folks produce a lot less food waste also. And also everyone's sharing a lot of food knowledge. The markets are also really important places because we're able to get feedback from community members who say, hey, there's this really specific bean that I really love from home that I haven't been able to find. And if we get enough requests, then as farmers, we can change our crop plan. And then next year we can grow more like culturally important foods. So every year that those crop plans are changing and those varieties are changing. And that's been such an important component for a lot of our members. Another really great thing is that the compost that we're making is extremely high quality. We produce enough compost for our 2-acre farm that we're able to, we don't have to ship in any material. And that's a big deal. We save about $6,000 to $8,000 not having to ship in all that compost and all that organic material. It also allows us to stay organic. We don't have to rely on any fertilizers. And it's also really important because we're able to connect with participants and they can see the whole food web. So much of composting is so much of waste management is very participatory. Everyone that is involved in sorting and making sure that the food in the back of the fridge isn't going to waste, every step involves a lot of participation. And we're really excited that we're able to close that loop of participation, where instead of all your waste going out to the curb and it just disappears for you never to see again, instead you're able to come to the farm, you're able to drop off your waste, get a tour of the compost, see where your waste is being formed into, into compost, and then you can go back to the farm. You can see the produce that's growing with the compost that you helped make, and then you're able to take that produce home and have it on your table. And then we're also working on developing more mid-scale systems that work for the city. Kind of when the green bin system rolled out, which is Toronto's residential compost collection, not as much work happened with kind of designing backyard systems or designing mid-scale compost systems. A lot of the city hit a lot of its diversion numbers, but here we're talking about zero waste. So that doesn't mean just diverting 80% of the city's food waste, that means how do we get to 100%? And the city in their most recent long-term waste strategy plan is calling for more mid-scale compost systems as a solution to deal with multi-residential waste, and also really helping kind of create more circular waste streams. The other really important thing the CCDE does is build community. Because so many people are coming together in one space and so many people are coming together weekly, a lot of folks meet new people, make new friends. A lot of neighbors will collect each other's food waste and carry it to the market, and they'll share market bucks. Maybe someone has too many market bucks, they'll share it with someone else. It's also, because the market gets to be on a farm, a lot of parents will bring their youth, and the youth can participate in picking cherry tomatoes, harvesting carrots, and the youth then the young children are then connecting even more with the food, which makes cooking the food and eating the food at home that much easier. We work with a few senior homes in the area, and a lot of the retirement homes, the participants and the folks will come to the market. They bring their own compost, they get to buy their own groceries. And also our market becomes a great place for volunteers. A lot of folks get to develop skills, build skills, run the farm stands. Our farm stand and a lot of the harvesting that's done is all youth run. And the goal is that community composting has this ability to create a lot more connection to green industry and environmental justice work. A lot of youth that come through our program are then running compost programs elsewhere. They're able to go on and manage a farm somewhere else. They're able to get kind of work jobs in the green industry. So seeing waste as a possible way to build community has done amazing work for us. So here's a couple photos of one of our participants picking up their bin, standing in one of the fields of carrots. You can see in the top right of the screen there, that's what an example of one of the compost or market dollars look like. So for every full bin that a community member brings, they're able to get a market dollar like that. And then some more of our community members that were trading some compost for some potatoes that just came out of the ground. Kind of touching based on a bit more is one of the biggest components of the program is just really helping to demystify like waste management. Where does all this stuff go? What does it look like? How is this processed? We run a totally fossil fuel free operation. So everything's done through volunteer labor. Participants and volunteers manage the entire system. And we're also, the CC helps generate a lot of interest in other forms of waste management. So a lot of participants that we've surveyed have said that getting their children and their family members, or getting their grandma, or getting whomever to start separating their waste at home has helped a lot with also with recycling. Folks get a lot better at making sure their recycling has less contamination. Especially in Toronto right now, the issues with recycle contamination is huge, and that's sometimes the ease of those programs can kind of lead to some of those issues with residential collection. So having folks be really aware of what they're collecting, and people put a lot of care into what they bring us because they know that the food waste that they're bringing us is going to be processed back into the soil. So we deal with very little plastic contaminants, spoons, straws, things that you could imagine end up diapers, pet waste, like a lot of things that might not make the best compost. People are really, community members are really, they've put a lot of energy into making sure that what they bring us is only food waste, that it's been sorted properly, and that makes our job as compost facilitators even greater. And having our farmers market kind of running on this initiative of bridging that gap and continuing to build a need for making sure that everyone has access to composting. A lot of community members have talked about how can our farm markets be zero waste? And that can look very different. A lot of people go to farmers markets, they'll see stands, and they don't see much plastic or much packaging. A lot of small farmers rely on growing a lot of baby greens, so baby spinach, lettuce, arugula, a lot of stuff that you might find pre-washed or packaged in a grocery store. A lot of farmers will bag that stuff up and sell it at farmers markets. We were selling about 100 to 200 bags a week of maybe different salad greens or spinach and arugula, sometimes more. And over 6 months of markets, we were producing tens of thousands of plastic bags. And what we did is with the input of communities, we decided, okay, we can start growing all of our lettuce to full-size head. We can start bunching our spinach and our arugula. We can cut down on the types. So by changing the crop plan to grow things to full size and then changing people's what they wanted at the market, we're able to totally cut out all the plastic at our markets. And the great thing about this program is folks get really excited. So we have to do very little outreach. The 170 plus families that are participating right now, almost all of them joined through word of mouth and through getting to work with other community members. Sorry, I'm just having a little trouble clicking.
I think that's my fault, Adam.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. One sec here.
No worries.
Okay, can you try again? I'll transition for you if it's not working.
Okay, yeah. Oh, there, I just saw it. Awesome. So yeah, what are the goals for CC going forward? We're continuing to build those best practices for mid-scale composting. Because we are all volunteer labor and we're working a lot of community members, we can't use really heavy machinery, which is used to flip a lot of the waste, to grind up waste, and to sift it. So we have designed bike-powered compost sifters. We have hand-cranked food grinders. So a lot of the machines that we're designing right now are ones that could be used at a community garden. They could be used at a farm without much training. There aren't too many safety hazards to them, and that's been really important in kind of making our programs very accessible to volunteers. Right now, we only collect waste during the farm season, so that's about 6 months of the year. We could very quickly double or more all of our diversion rates if we were able to do year-round, and we're working towards kind of doing year-round collection markets. And what that would mean is hopefully through getting stuff, at least during the off season, getting stuff from the Ontario Food Terminal and still continuing to run our markets, because a lot of community members have said that the markets are just a really important weekly social space for them. So we're working on how can that be year round. And we also really want to start working on how do we do a mobile bike collection service. So this would be kind of micro hauling. A lot of community members work together, and if someone has accessibility issues or they have a hard time making it to the farm, especially maybe carrying 10 or more pounds of their food waste, a lot of times we'll team them up with a neighbor that's in the area, or they'll just ask at a market if someone can help them, and a lot of times they'll find someone that can help them every week. But we're hoping to offer a mobile bike collection where just 1 week we can do a roll around the community and we'd pick up from folks outside their buildings. Some of the challenges that we deal with are there's a bit of gray zone that is being worked on changing now about waste hauling. We're in a gray zone because the waste that we're bringing, we're not picking it up and transporting it. Folks are walking it to us, and it's being then it is being processed on our site, which we're allowed to run the scale compost operation that we're doing. But if we do start trying to work into mobile bike collection, that's where some of the rules around being a waste hauler get iffy. And in some cities like New York, they've done a lot of work in trying to define what a micro hauler is. So having different rules for folks that are collecting under a certain poundage of weight. As we continue to scale this program forward, right now we're running at 2 large farms. And next year we're hoping to be running at 5 1 acre or larger farms. And as we continue to grow up, some of the questions are, you know, the increase of folks coming to the market helps as farms so that we can sell a lot of our produce. Because we're not having to leave the farm and we're able to just harvest the produce on site, sell it on site, that saves us a ton of time. Also, there's the cost benefits of not ever having to buy or bring in any compost. But we are giving out, you know, $20,000 to $30,000 worth of produce or more, exchanging with this program a year, and trying to balance what those costs look like for our program is being important. And we still deal with a lot of miseducation around composting procedures. A lot of times when we start our compost operations, the first people are really afraid of rats, they're really afraid of rodents, they're really afraid of possible smells that might come. And because we're using an aerobic system, which is much different than the anaerobic, which doesn't use any oxygen, the larger industrial systems, a lot of our compost actually smells like sweet earth. It smells really good. And sometimes you have to bring someone right up to it to prove. And we're also, we've worked with a lot of different animal control agencies, animal specialists, and we've designed a system that the way that we space out our piles, the way we space our bins out, the way we cap our piles with wood chips, we have 0 rodent issues, which is pretty impressive when, you know, if you're already living in an urban environment and you're going to be dealing with those no matter what. We've done a lot of work in creating those environments. So just continuing to educate folks around the composting procedures, you know, and going forward also is we hope to show that there is a real community members living in these multi-residential buildings and in these older apartment buildings. They're really passionate about having access to composting, and hopefully if the city does eventually roll out a collection program for them, you know, we're excited that we're able to do this work now to provide a lot of that education, to make sure that when, you know, if the city is able to offer a different type of compost collection for them, then a lot of the residents are already trained and they already know how to separate their compost, which is going to help keep diversion rates down drastically. And here's just a little photo of the farm in the spring. Some rainbow chard being harvested from some of the youth farm managers. So yeah, thanks everyone for giving a chance to talk. My email was on one of the beginning slides. Feel free to email me if you have any questions about the work that Foodshare does or the work that we're doing with the CCE. I have a lot of the data from the last 5 years that we've been running it available also. So thanks for your time.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you so much, Adam. That was great. We love your Foodshare program. We love being able to work with you on that, and we're excited, you know, to do an upcoming blog. So for our audience, stay tuned on our Busch Systems website and social media for some coverage coming up on the Foodshare program. So a lot of questions coming in. So I'm going to start with those. So Bridget and Adam, if you guys can turn your microphones on. So Bridget, where did you find the funds? Where did the funds come from to upgrade the recycling station infrastructure on your campus?
Good question. To hire me, like we got one giant amount of money. We went straight to the Vice President Resources of the university at the time. And it was my colleague that had asked for funds to hire me on contract and to do the switch up. And he had shown how much money we would save eventually, why we needed to do it, et cetera, et cetera. And he was just given the money. It was pretty amazing. Yeah. I'm sorry, it wasn't more of a challenge than that for anyone looking for money right now.
Perfect. Someone asked, are the slides in presentation going to be available? Yes, you will receive an email and follow up to the webinar with access to the recording. For Bridget, we've struggled with contamination of trash, cutlery, etc. into our organics and compost bins in our dining hall, where the students sort the materials. Have you experienced that in your dining hall, or do you have the staff to do the sorting?
So I'll talk about two aspects of this. The first one is that in our zero waste dining hall, All of the compost bins, all of the holes are magnetic, and the magnet is so powerful that it will catch any metal cutlery that you would throw down there. So that's how we've solved that issue. And then for the rest of campus, all of our cutlery from our Chartwells locations are compostable, 100% compostable, acceptable in our compost facility.
For Adam, what are some of the ways that you get different residents to participate in your program? Is it pretty easy to get people to buy in?
Yeah, great question. Usually, so this year we just started a new CCE program in a new neighborhood, and some of the problems that for okay, how do we get folks involved and how do we get folks to sign on? Honestly, it's so much of it is just being word of mouth. We sometimes will do a bit of a blast out. We did an event at the beginning of the season. We planted about 1,000 trees to create a renaturalization area, and a lot of those trees were community members that lived in some of the buildings were able to adopt the trees because a lot of folks couldn't plant trees in backyards or whatever, and that was a really good time just to chat with people about the program. And once people are starting to come to a farm every week, and they're seeing the change through the season from us planting seeds and the radishes to becoming a full-size thing that's on the market stand, to the tomatoes becoming 6 inches tall to 12 feet tall, people really kind of become in awe of being able to experience that full season, and that's really helped with people are just really excited that their waste is going somewhere and they can participate and they can see what their waste is turning into.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. For Bridget, how has implementing the liquids collection changed the contamination and waste diversion since implementation?
So I don't have any data to back this up, but significantly, just speaking with the cleaning staff, as soon as we implemented that the first year in 2008, they were telling us how much they appreciated not having to carry and drag bags that were, one, heavy to the waste containers or the recycling containers, and two, that would often rip and leak liquids all over the floor. They often have to clean afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Adam, do you find contamination in your compost streams, anything like paper towel and Kleenex, or is it pretty much straight food waste?
We do take some. We do offer some like people to put paper in. We originally, when we started the system, we didn't even actually take too much cooked waste because sometimes that stuff can attract rodents, and we really wanted to be careful because we are working with school properties and we're working in public spaces. We really wanted to make sure that we weren't attracting any rodents to these sites. But after running the program for a few years, we realized, okay, we can start taking cooked waste or cooked food because our program is rodent free. We don't deal with too many contaminants. The great thing about what we do is if we do deal with contaminants, because our system is aerobic, so we're flipping the piles, which are quite large, once every week or every 2 weeks. Any contaminants that are in those piles are being sorted out throughout the process. So once a pile is being flipped 6 or 7 times, there's pretty much zero contaminants in the finished composting product, which also, for a form of continuality, is the compost we're making. Yeah, because we can. There's no plastics. It's a really high quality product, and it can be sold as that, compared to a lot of maybe the compost you might get from a city drop off, which might have a lot of contaminants in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Bridget, in the zero waste dining hall, what happens to contamination? Are in-house staff responsible for removing the plastics from the compost stream? Wondering how you avoid having hauler reject the bale because of smaller volumes of contamination.
Okay, so in our zero waste dining hall, we have a tiny little bucket that sits on top of one of the stations where people can go bring their stuff. And there's so little items in there, like people just don't bring their waste, or they will carry it out with them because they can't see it easily. It's not an issue. One issue that we did have for a little while was that cleaning staff were putting their gloves in the compost because they didn't know where to put them, or their cloths, thinking that they would be compostable. And that's why we added the special station strictly for staff that has every category of material. They have to lift something up so the public can't or doesn't even know that it's there, but the cleaning staff use it actively. And that little bucket, they can also put like broken plates is usually the type of waste that people have and don't know where to put. And that's that bucket is provided for that.
Okay. And another question for myself, did you say that the waste to energy incineration methods are unacceptable for zero waste consideration? So this all depends who you're speaking to and what certification you're looking at, what classification of zero waste you're considering. So the Zero Waste International Alliance considers waste to energy or incineration methods that those would not be classified as for zero waste. So yeah, that will vary. So if we didn't get to your questions, we're going to wrap up here. But if we didn't get to your questions, we'll be sure to send you an email to follow up. I'm just going to pull up our contact info here. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today on our webinar series. We hope that the information that you learned was valuable. And a big thank you to our guest speakers, Bridget and Adam, for taking the time to share their expertise and their experiences with us today. So speakers' contact information is up here on the screen, so feel free to reach out directly to any of us. And as I said, the webinar was recorded, so you will be getting an email shortly with the link to that recording. And feel free to share that link with anyone who you think would find this information valuable. And the webinar series that we're hosting is ongoing, so keep an eye for an upcoming webinar coming in October. So thank you again, everybody, and have a great day.